When working with Dataverse, you will eventually need to add logic to your data. For the longest time, we had choices, but they often came with either limitations or their implementation was not as straightforward as you'd like. Now, we can do most of our logic with formula columns. Hi, I'm Bruno and welcome to the Power Minutes. Before we check the formula columns out, let's check the solutions that existed before and check their trade-offs to understand why this new feature is so important. Let's start with Power Automate. We know it's great for automation and will tick the box when it comes to most of our requirements when it comes to making manipulations and automations. The problem is that even in an automated flow, it will run asynchronously, meaning that there will be delays. This can range from just a temporary visual issue where a field hasn't been updated just yet, or it can even, depending on your scenario, affect logic down the line, making it a challenge. More traditional answers are the calculated and rollup fields. They are limited in flexibility. They are targeted to make a calculation on a field, like an aggregate, on the rollups. And the challenge here is to scale out of what they were originally envisioned. For example, the rollup field is an aggregate field, which is built to be run on a schedule or to run it manually. Meanwhile, as we use these during our projects, we were asked more and more for instant calculations. So our users didn't want to click the button or just wait it out. Additionally, you can have a traditional or classic workflow, which honestly, it has a great advantage of running synchronously when compared to a Power Automate. It can even fetch data to related tables, unlike some other features like business rules. But its old interface is a challenge to work with. There's a few quirks that you have to accept and work with those quirks, which makes it a bit more challenging to develop and maintain. Sometimes this is one of the last resorts if you don't want or you cannot use custom code. Yes, custom code is always the final answer when you're blocked. That is the challenge of the slow code platform is Microsoft can only envision so many scenarios, and for everything else we have our custom code. It's very powerful. It allows you to do quote unquote everything, but it comes with a trade-off, which is, well, you need to know how to apply that custom code. You need to learn either a C# or JavaScript to make it work. That's additional skills you need to know. That's additional testings you need to know, and additional maintenance down the road. It can be an answer, but it comes at a cost. And even merging all these together, while you could often end up with a good solution, it always felt like you had to do a trade-off somewhere, and you had, to use more technologies than you'd expect, making your solution more complex than you had originally thought of. And here is why the formula columns come in. They were introduced to simplify this whole process. The purpose here is literally to bridge the no-code, pro-code, and bringing Power Effects, yes, the same language we use in Canvas app, directly to the database layer. These columns are smart with minimal effort, so you can perform math, you can perform string manipulation, you can even do some logical checks without leaving the table designer. It is real-time execution, so it's synchronous, so unlike your Power Automate, it will run as soon as you save the form, and it will ensure that as you refresh the form after the save, that the data is there. This is a great win because that means that less and less we have to go to workflows to ensure that we have that synchronous effect. And of course, we don't have to necessarily create a JavaScript code to just do some steps. Maybe now we can focus even further more on the Power Effects low code. And lastly, let's talk about portability. Because the logic lives in the Dataverse level, the calculation works exactly whatever the data is accessed from. So if you are accessing the data from a model-driven app, a Canvas app, a Power Page, the logic exists on the database layer. So you don't have to care much where you use it because the data is already handled for you in Dataverse. Moreover, that also means that you don't have flows that might end up hidden somewhere, or the JavaScript hidden somewhere, to access that data. But now, let's see how that modern solution would look like, and I'll let you guess where the formula fields were used. So, let's go and check our Net Promoter Score app. Well, this case is relatively simple. We'll just today add a new Net Promoter Score outcome. I will do the Power Minutes demo. And you can see that there's a lot of fields over here, but only a few fields that are worth filling in. So for those that are unaware, a Net Promoter Score is used to evaluate how good something was, a bit of a survey, and depending on the value, people say that this effort was valuable, so they become promoters. People that think it was middling, it was okay, not great, good nor bad, they are passives. Of course, people that didn't enjoy it will say they are detractors. So basically saying how good, for example, a presentation we gave or a video we gave was valuable. So of course, in a real life scenario, there would be a bit more related fields and actual people, but for today's example, we're just going to fill in those fields and we're going to press save. Wow, and there you have it. Everything is filled in. We got percentages over here. I can even update it once again. So yeah, it's not instant. You need to still save it. That one's still reserved for some scripts. But you can see that as soon as I save, everything runs together. So yeah, you can see that all of these fields that have a lock were in fact a formula column. Pretty neat, right? Now, let's look under the hood and see what we did. It's all nice to see the finished product, but what is a technical video without a technical answer? We have 3 examples we're going to go over. Our first example will be the percentage. So let's check here, percentage. And let's see the promoter's percentage. As you can see now, it's highlighting as a data type, and I'll take some time to later show it, but you can see that it's a formula. So remember, this is intelligent enough to know what output or what data type it needs to be for output to be processed. And we have some code over here. So I'm just going to cut it out and paste it on the off screen just to create it together with you again. So if I start typing, it's a bit delayed today. So promoter's number divided by total NPS contacts, and then we do 100, just like you do on a Canvas app or even on a low-code PowerFX button. This will have a slight delay from my experience. It's accessing the database inside, so it needs a little warm-up as of today, but you can see that you can fetch data as needed. That's our percentage case. Let's move on to our other cases. We did an aggregate, so we had the total sum, and okay, that's saving. That's no longer relevant for today's example. Let's just reload and go quickly to our other columns. Let's check. Then our aggregate was sum, if I believe. No, let's quickly check. Total NPS contacts, of course, total. And you will see that an aggregate is not too different. We already had a number, and we do number, number, number. All of our cases are going to be summed together. Again, this is what you would usually do in a calculated field. It's nearly answered here in a more modern and intuitive interface. Although calculated fields, I have to say, they never failed me in terms of doing a proper output. Working with those that language sometimes was a bit more challenging. Now, for the best case that we have today, this NPS rating. It's looking pretty good, if I say so myself. So if I say rating, let's see what we did. And look at that! I know it's a formula field, and it knows it's a choice. So yes, one of the things we did today is we created an NPS rating with all of these ratings. Pretty standard. We went with some colors as well to make it visually enticing, but we said I don't want to drop down and select the right one. I want it to do it for me. So now that we looked our choices over here, we notice that we have the same name. And if you've been in the Power Platform long enough, you'll see that sometimes brings a bit of headache. Don't you worry, the disambiguation filter is also present over here, and we have some if statements. So if there's no score, we leave it blank. If we have a score under 0, it's terrible. And so on. So, okay, we can always refine it, but you look here, and this is a choice. We're having the delays like I mentioned, but you look, you have the ability to choose from the option set. And there you have it. You can make all of that in a new formula field. We didn't see it from scratch, but yes, that data type is not there at the start. If you go over here and create your own, make sure you go down to formula, and it will start as formula. Only after saving that formula is that the data type will be evaluated by the Power Platform itself. Now, there are insights that this is not fully ready just yet. And why is that? Well, there are a few limitations around, mainly around field types, one of them being currencies. If you go and check a field that is of the type currency, or for example, a number that is calculated, you'll see that it mentions, hey, this is going to be deprecated. However, currency is currently not supported. It's a huge step up or a huge gap that needs to be closed. Currency fields are complex because they have to manage cross-currency translations of currency, and that is not simple. So once that is done, you will see that maybe the calculated and rollup fields will finally be depreciated. For everything else, it's time to start checking your logic and see if it can be made in a formula field. See you next time.